Okay, good morning, students. Sridhar, you
Good
have
morning.
gone through the lecture notes of fifth module.
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts? You want me to repeat any topic?
No, ma'am.
Everything is very much clear. You know the schedule of your third internal, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
20 to 4.
yeah. Okay, then let me go on with the regular one. That is third lecture's topics. Let me cover today. In last two revision classes, we have seen the overall flow of MapReduce and how we can work with mapper and reducer classes in order to process NCDC data. Okay, now that we have seen how to write mapper and reducer classes and customize map and reduce functions in order to meet your requirements to answer the problem at hand, our next concept will be scaling out. We normally start with running a system in a pseudo distributed mode where all the Hadoop daemons like name node, secondary name node, data node, task tracker, and job tracker, all these will be running on a single system. Now, if you want to work with multiple jobs on a larger cluster where multiple data nodes will be executing the task simultaneously, in that case, how to perform that scaling out, how you can expand the scope of your operations of processing the data, large volumes of data that we are going to see. Now, having run through how the MapReduce works, the next step is to express it in the form of code. For that, we have seen how to write it in a mapper class and a reducer class and pack it into a job by creating a jar file and placing it on the cluster so that various job trackers will be available in order to pick up that job and execute those tasks associated with that job. Now, the next concept will be how to scale out this set of operations. Now, to allow Hadoop to move the map reduce computation to each machine hosting a part of the data, the process would be as follows as given in these particular steps. Okay, now the main concept under this map reduce technique or map reduce methodology is the data is not transferred to and fro between the functionalities. Rather than that, the map and reduce functions are, that is, the computation is transferred to the nodes where the data resides so that you can save on the bandwidth and you won't result in network bottlenecks, right? For that, how to scale up, what is the process in order to scale up this particular task. A map reduce job is a unit of work that the client wants to be performed, and it consists of input data, the map reduce program, and the configuration information. The input data will be the input splits on which the processing has to take place, and the map reduce program is the actual program which you have written in order to customize your map and reduce functions and pack it into a job. And finally, the configuration information where you can configure your client and the servers. Now Hadoop runs the job by dividing it into multiple tasks, of which there are two types. Again, they are map tasks and reduce tasks. When you are working with map reduce programs, you divide it into multiple tasks, and it is not that you work with only one map task and one reduce task. You will be working with multiple map and reduce tasks. Why? Because you are trying to process GBs of data, gigabytes of data. In that case, that voluminous data, if it is processed by a single data node or by a single task tracker, then that will take too much of time. But if you can map those tasks simultaneously onto multiple nodes, then the processing will be much faster. For that, you are dividing the task into multiple map and reduce tasks. And remember, only when the map task complete, at least part of the map task complete, the reduce task will start executing. Why? Because the map tasks have to provide the output to the reduce task, right? So there are two types of nodes that control the job execution process. One is the job tracker, and the other one is the number of task trackers. A job tracker is like a master which will assign the jobs, which will assign the partitioned jobs to the task trackers, right? So this job tracker will be responsible to assign the job, divided jobs into to the task trackers, and also monitor how far the task trackers have completed the job. Also, it will keep track of whether the task trackers are in healthy condition or not. If they are, if there is any failure of the task trackers, immediately this job tracker will notify the name node that a particular task tracker has failed and tries to reschedule that particular task onto a different node on which the task tracker can be run without any hassles. Now, the job tracker coordinates all the jobs run on the system by scheduling tasks to run on the task trackers. The task trackers run tasks and send progress reports to the job tracker, which keeps a record of the overall progress of each job. So the task trackers will be responsible to execute these partition jobs, and eventually, periodically, they'll send their status of how far the job has been completed. That will be sent to the job tracker, which will enable the job tracker to monitor the overall progress of the job. Now, if a task fails, what will happen? If a task fails in the middle, then the job tracker can reschedule it on a different task tracker by intimating the name node that that particular task tracker has failed. That is why it is rescheduling the job onto a different task tracker. Now, Hadoop divides the input to a map reduce job into fixed pieces called as input splits or just splits. Because the data has to be given in the form of key value pairs as input to the map job. For processing, the data will be divided into input splits. So the key will be the file offset or some other detail about a particular text where it is starting in the data set. And the next key value will be the input split or the text or the string that has to be manipulated, that has to be processed. Okay, so the Hadoop creates one map task for each split, which runs user-defined map function for each record in the split. So remember this, we are saying that it is a user-defined map function. Why? Because the map function is declared in the mapper class, and we customize that by extending the mapper class and overriding this map function according to our requirements. That is why it is called as customized or user-defined map function. Now the Hadoop creates one map task for each split, which runs user-defined map function for each record in the split. That is given in the input split. Now, having many splits means the time taken to process each split is small compared to time to process the whole input, right? So when you are dividing the entire data set into smaller input splits and distribute that onto multiple nodes in order to be processed, that time taken will be comparably, considerably very less when compared to the time taken to process the whole input data set, right? That is why the input splits help the Hadoop to quickly process the data by distributing the task onto multiple data nodes. So if we are processing the splits in parallel, that is what I said right now, the processing is better load balanced when the splits are small, since a faster machine will be able to process proportionally more splits over the course of the job than a slower machine, right? So if the machine is faster, then it will process more and more number of splits when compared to a slower machine. That is why if you can split the data into multiple chunks or smaller work units, then we can achieve better load balancing during the processing of that particular data set. Now, even if the machines are identical, failed process or other jobs running concurrently make load balancing desirable. It is always required. And the quality of the load balancing increases as the splits become more and more fine grained. If you keep on fine tuning these input splits, if you keep on reducing the size of these input splits, then the load balancing would become better and better. Why? Because the machines can perform simultaneously at the same time this processing task and give the result in lesser time. Now, on the other hand, if splits are too small, again, you have to have a trade-off here. For achieving better load balance, you can't keep on splitting the input into smaller and smaller chunks. There is a limit there. If splits are too small, the overhead of managing the splits and of map task creation begins to dominate the total job execution time. So you will have to spend more and more time on managing these input splits and the map task creation and assigning it to various nodes. That task itself will take more time and it will dominate the total job execution time. So you have to see where exactly you have to stop splitting the input to a very smaller level. Means you have to find out where you have to stop fine grinding that particular input while splitting it into smaller work units. Now, for most jobs, a good split size tends to be the size of an HDFS block, and it is normally by default 64 MB. And although this can be changed for the cluster for all newly created files, and this can be specified when each file is created. So when the file is being created itself, it can be specified that the default size for an input split can be 64 MB, or it can be changed when new files are being created, right? So 64 MB is taken as the default so that they would not go below than that for the input split size. Now, Hadoop does its best to run the map task on a node where the input data resides in HDFS. Okay, so the Hadoop tries to locate the node where the input data is residing and tries to assign that map task to that particular node itself. This is called as the data locality optimization. When the Hadoop is able to assign a map task to the node where the data is residing on which the task would be run, that is called as data locality optimization, which requires no transfer of data to and fro between the nodes. Because it doesn't use valuable cluster bandwidth, this will optimize the execution process. But sometimes, however, all three nodes hosting the HDFS block replicas, you know that the default replication factor is 3, and one copy is stored on one node and other copy is stored on the same rack on a different node, and the other third copy is saved on a different rack on a different node, right? So if one of the node is busy, then what will happen? Sometimes all three nodes hosting the HDFS block replicas for a map task input split are running other map tasks. They are engaged in running other map tasks. In that case, the job scheduler will look for a free map slot on a node in the same rack as one of the blocks. It will check for the same, it will check on the same rack on a different node for the map slot, if it is free or not. Very occasionally, even if this is not possible, means a node on the same rack, a different node on the same rack, if its map slot is also not free, then an off-rack node is used, which results in an inter-rack network transfer. In this case, inter-rack network transfer is required. Why? Because the map slot is not free on the node where the data is residing, and the map slot is not free on a different node on the same rack where the data is residing. In that extreme case, it will go on to a off-rack node. It will check for an off-rack node, and it is used in order to perform that particular task, but this results in an inter-rack network transfer. Now, this is depicted in this particular example. Here, the HDFS block is trying to execute a map task not available, then it will check for a different node on the same rack, and if that is also not free, if that particular node is also engaged with many other map tasks, the map slot is not free, then it will go on to a node to execute the task on that particular node. So this is an extreme condition. Always the first slot itself will be free with the initial node. If not, then another node on the same rack. If not, then another node on a different rack will be accessed in order to assign this task to execute that particular map task. Now it should now be clear why the optimal split size is the same as the block size. It is the largest size of input that can be guaranteed to be stored on a single node. So that is the atomic unit which can be divided further, and that is the largest size of input also that can be guaranteed to be stored on a particular node. Now if the split spanned two blocks, what will happen? It would be unlikely that any HDFS node stored both the blocks. So some of the split would have to be transferred across the network to the node running the map task, which is clearly lesser efficient than running the old task using the local data. That is why when you span a particular block onto two different nodes, then it is harder to perform this execution. Why? Because it requires data transfer, which will make the entire notion of this map reduce less efficient. Why? Because our basic idea is to reduce the data transfer between the nodes. But if you span a single block of multiple nodes, then you have to transfer data onto a node where the task is actually executing that particular map job. That is why you have to see that a block of data always resides on a single node rather than dividing it and distributing it onto multiple nodes. Remember, file is being divided into blocks. Blocks should not be divided further. Now, map tasks write their output to the local disk, not to HDFS, because map output is intermediate output. Maps output will not be utilized anywhere else other than the reduced task input. That is why map tasks write their output to a local disk temporarily, not to HDFS file system, because map output is intermediate output utilized only by the reduce phase and nowhere else. It is processed by reduce task to produce the final output, and once the job is complete, the map output can be thrown away. It is no longer useful. Why? Because the reduced task has consumed the output of the map task in order to sort, merge and consolidate and give the final result, which can be written onto a file system on the local machine. So this intermediate maps output is not required any longer. For that case, it will be thrown away after it is consumed by the reduce phase. So storing it in HDFS with replication would be an overhead. It will be a overkill for the entire architecture, extra work for the entire architecture. That is, we even know doesn't require the maps output to be replicated, right? That is why it is thrown away. Now, if the node running the map task fails before the map output has been consumed by the reduced task, this is another scenario, then Hadoop will automatically rerun the map task on another node to recreate the map output. There is no log that is maintained for the map outputs, or they are not permanently stored anywhere. They are just written to the local disk, and if at all the map task fails, then immediately Hadoop will automatically rerun the map task on another node in order to recreate the map output and give it as input to the reduce phase. Now, reduced tasks don't have the advantage of data locality. Why? Because the map task only performs the processing on the nodes where the data is residing and gives the output to the reduced task. And that output can be sorted, merged, and consolidated by the reduced task, but it doesn't actually require any direct access to the data, preliminary data. That is why reduced tasks don't have the advantage of data locality. Now, the input to a single reduced task is normally the output from all the mappers or the map tasks. Now, in the present example, we have a single reduced task that is fed by all the map tasks, right? Let us see, I'll show you that in the next picture. Now, therefore, the stored map outputs have to be transferred across the network to the node where the reduce task is running, where they are merged and then passed to the user-defined reduce functions, right? So the output of the reduce is normally stored in HDFS for reliability, because if at all the data is lost, then it should be available somewhere, right? Before the writing process. Now, for each HDFS block of the reduce output, the first replica is stored on the local node, with other replicas being stored on off-rack nodes. This is same as when you write data to the HDFS cluster, file system on a HDFS cluster. First, for each HDFS block of the reduce output, the first replica, the first copy is stored on the local node, with other replicas being stored on off-rack nodes. Thus, writing the reduce output does consume network bandwidth, but only as much as normal HDFS write pipeline consumes, as I said. Okay, so you have to maintain the replicas for the reduce output, because that is the final consolidated processed output of the input data set, right? So we can't take any chance of losing that particular data. So you have to maintain the replication factor for the map reduce output. Now this is where the map reduce data with reduce tasks. Here you have multiple map tasks, right? Now the splits are given to this map task as input, and they are sorted and copied and merged in order to pass it as input to the reduce phase. Here we are relying only on one reduce phase, one reduce task. Okay, and that will give the final output, which will be sent for HDFS replication, where 3 copies will be maintained on the HDFS cluster. Now, the number of reduced tasks is not governed by the size of the input, but instead it is specified independently. We can opt to mention how many number of reduced tasks need to be considered in that particular job. Now, when there are multiple reducers, the map tasks partition their output, each creating one partition for each reduced task. If there is a single reduced task, then the number of map tasks will merge all their map outputs in order to feed it to a single reduced task. But if you have, say, 3 reduced tasks, in that case, the number of map tasks will take care of consolidating, merging the results into 3 outputs finally in order to be fed into 3 reduced tasks. Now there can be many keys in each partition, but the records for any given key are all in a single partition. But they take care that the records for any given key, associated key, are all in a single partition. Now the partitioning can be controlled by a user-defined partitioning function, but normally the default partitioner which buckets keys hash function works very well. So the default partitioning technique that is adopted is normally the hash function, which buckets the keys very well in order to pass them as input to the reduce phase. Now this is another depiction of where you have taken multiple reduce tasks, Okay, in this case, there are multiple map tasks which feed their output after merging appropriately in order to serve as input to the reduce phases that are selected. Here, there are two reduce tasks that are selected. So, the output of multiple map phases are merged into two inputs and given to these two reduce tasks, which will finally give their outputs and sent for HDFS replication at the end. Means each of these reduce outputs will have their replication to be as 3 in order to be stored on the file system on HDFS. Now this diagram makes it clear why the data flow between map and reduce task is colloquially known as the shuffle, as each reduce task is fed by many map tasks. Now, when many map tasks are feeding the reduce task, the input have to be shuffled in order to get some values associated with a particular key. Say in our air temperature example, we are shuffling the air temperatures key value pairs such that all the air temperatures in a particular year 1950 are fed to one particular reduced task, and other air temperatures recorded in a particular say year 1960, they are fed to a particular reduced task. So we are seeing that all the values associated with a particular key are shuffled and sorted and sent as input to one particular reduced task, right? So the shuffle is more complicated than the diagram suggests, and tuning it can have a big impact on job execution time. Now, finally, it is also possible to have zero reduced tasks. Now, if you don't opt for a if you don't opt for a reduced task, then the map task output will directly be written onto a file system on the HDFS cluster. Now, this can be appropriate when you don't need the shuffle because the processing can be carried out entirely in parallel only by the map jobs. Now, in this case, the only off-node data transfer is when the map tasks write directly to HDFS, as mentioned in this example. Now, the map tasks, after processing the data, they write their input directly to the HDFS cluster by maintaining the HDFS replication factor. Right? In this case, no reduce task is involved in order to consolidate the results. We have opted directly to write the outputs of the map task onto the file system on this HDFS cluster. Right? I hope this concept is very clear, right? This is very important concept for your exam. Having multiple reduced tasks, having a single reduced task, and having no reduced task. How these different scenarios will try to execute a particular job processing. That has to be clearly understood. Any doubts in this concept? Pratibha, Madhusri?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Am I able to make it very clear to you? Harini?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Sridhar, what about you?
No doubts, ma'am.
Okay. So in what form map receives the input? In text form or key value pair form? I want you to answer. What is the input abstraction that is followed for a map task? Is it a text data or a key value pair? Madhusri? Pratibha? If you understood this concept very clearly, you should be able to answer this, right? Very simple question. What is the input abstraction that is followed, a key value pair or a text data? Speak out. Sridhar? Harini, can you answer?
Key value map.
Very good. So can I opt for writing the map task output directly to the file system on HDFS cluster without the intervention of a reduced task? Is it possible? Sridhar?
Can you repeat them?
Without the intervention of a reduced task, can I write the map task output directly to a file system on HDFS? Yes or no? Madhusri, yes or no? That is what we discussed in today's revision class, right? Yes, we can opt for not including reduced task and directly write the map task output to HDFS file system. Okay? Okay, then see you in the next revision class. Bye.